Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something powerful right now. Your bank account is not a reflection of your potential. It's a reflection of your mindset. Your financial situation isn't about luck, background, or even hard work. It's about belief. It's about decisions. And most of all, it's how you think. You see, the first shift you need to make if you want to transform your finances is not in your job, not in your product, not even in your strategy. It's in your mind. Wealth doesn't start with money. It starts with a wealthy mindset. If you think a broke person, talk like a broke person, act like a broke person, you will stay broke no matter how many opportunities show up. Wealth begins with a mindset, not money. That statement challenges everything most people are taught about success. From a young age, society conditions us to believe that money comes from external sources, a good job, a solid education, or even just luck. But the reality is the great asset you can ever invest in is not a business or a property. It's your mindset, because how you think determines how you behave, and how you behave determines the results you create. Let's break it down. There are people who come from wealth and lose it all, and there are people who start with nothing and create massive success. If money were the deciding factor, those patterns wouldn't exist, but they do. The common denominator in wealth creation is not cash flow. It's how someone sees the world, how they interpret failure, how they respond to challenges, and most of all, how they perceive themselves. A person with a scarcity mindset views money as something limited, something they must chase, something they can never quite hold on to. They might say things like, or I can't afford that, or money doesn't grow on trees. That language comes from a belief system rooted in lack. When your mind is wired to see limitation, you live in fear of losing, fear of trying, fear of investing, and fear of asking for more. On the other hand, someone with an abundance mindset sees money as a tool, something that can be created, attracted, multiplied. They don't focus on lack, they focus on opportunity. Instead of saying, I can't afford it, they ask, how do I afford it? That shift may seem small, but it's a massive change in mental programming. One is a statement of finality, the other is a question that opens the door to creativity and action. Your mindset affects your ability to recognize opportunity. Two people can walk into the same room, hear the same information, and walk out with completely different results. One person hears a new idea and thinks, that's not for me. I don't have the skills. Another person hears the same thing and thinks, I could figure that out. I just need to learn. Same input, different mindset, completely different output. The truth is, if your mind is wired to think small, you'll sabotage big opportunities. If your mind is trained to expect failure, you'll interpret even temporary setbacks as permanent defeats. But when your mindset is anchored in possibility, you view setbacks as lessons. You bounce back faster, you take more calculated risks, and you see yourself as the person capable of creating wealth, not waiting for it. Your mindset is also what gives money its meaning. Money is neutral. It takes on the meaning you assign to it. If you see it as a source of stress, it will bring stress. If you see it as a reward for solving problems, it becomes a motivator. People who think differently about money behave differently with it. They invest more in themselves. They surround themselves with mentors. They take bold action, not because they're fearless, but because their mindset is focused on long-term growth, not short-term fear. So before you chase another dollar, ask yourself how you think about the dollars you already have. Are you grateful for them? Do you steward them well? Do you believe more can come? Because if you don't believe wealth is available to you, your subconscious mind will find ways to reject it even when it shows up. The mind is always working, either to pull wealth toward you or to push it away. Your value grows when your belief grows. Most people, their value comes from external validation, degrees, titles, promotions, or how many followers they have. But true value isn't assigned by the world. It's recognized by the world only after you believe in it yourself. Belief is the root of value, and the size of your belief system determines the level of impact you can make and the wealth you can attract. If you don't believe in what you bring to the table, no one else will. This is one of the most foundational truths in personal development and financial success. You might have talent, skills, experience, and ideas, but if you don't believe they matter, you'll underprice them, hide them, or hesitate to share them. And the market doesn't reward what it can't see. It rewards what is communicated with confidence and clarity. Belief changes the way you show up. A person who believes in their value walks into a room differently. They speak differently. They don't shrink back from opportunity. They raise their hand. They pitch their ideas. They see the state their prices with certainty. They don't wait for permission to contribute. They expect to be part of the solution. That shift in energy makes people pay attention. And when people pay attention, they pay money. When you increase your belief, you stop negotiating with yourself about whether you're worthy. You stop disqualifying yourself before others even get the chance. Most people lose the race before they even begin, not because they weren't capable, but because they doubted themselves so deeply that they never got off the starting line. But belief neutralizes doubt. It creates momentum. It empowers action. Belief also impacts how much responsibility you take. When you believe in your value, you start to see problems as opportunities instead of burdens. You don't say, that's not my job. You say, This is my chance to lead, to innovate, to contribute something no one else has thought of yet. Belief elevates your standards. It raises your internal expectation for what you're capable of and what kind of reward you should receive for that capability. When your belief is small, your actions are small. You hesitate, procrastinate, and second guess yourself. You may work hard, but you don't work boldly. But when your belief grows, your decisions become sharper. You start making moves that align with your highest potential, not your lowest fear. That's when your value in the marketplace starts to grow, not because your skills changed overnight, because your level of belief expanded. Belief is also what drives learning and growth. The people who believe in their potential are more likely to invest in themselves. They attend the seminar. They read the book. They hire the coach. Why? Because they believe they're worth the investment. They don't see it as spending. They see it as multiplying. They know that increasing their belief increases their capacity to deliver value. And when value increases, compensation follows. Many people try to increase their income without increasing their belief. That's why they struggle. They're trying to demand more from the world while still doubting themselves internally. It doesn't work. They see the strength of the external always catches up to the internal. If you want people to pay you more, believe you're worth more. If you want people to see your expertise, believe that your experience has value. No one can raise your value for you. That's your job. And it begins with belief. When you start seeing yourself as someone who brings transformation, solves problems, and adds real worth, that belief bleeds into everything you do. It shows up in your voice, in your posture, the strength in your proposals, and in your pricing. You don't just work more. You work from a place of conviction. Poverty is a mindset, not a circumstance. This may be a hard truth to accept, especially for those who have faced real financial struggle. But the deeper you study the patterns of success and failure, the more obvious it becomes. Money problems are often symptom-level issues. The root issue is how someone thinks, believes, and behaves. The poverty mindset is a belief system that keeps people locked in survival mode, even when the opportunity for growth is right in front of them. A person can have very little money and still have a prosperous mindset. Just like someone with a large paycheck can still be driven by fear, scarcity, and limitation. Poverty is not defined by the numbers in your bank account. It's defined by the beliefs in your head. It's the internal dialogue that says, that's not for people like me, or I'll never be able to get ahead, or rich people are just lucky or dishonest. Those thoughts shape decisions, and decisions create results. The poverty mindset is rooted in fear. It's always waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's obsessed with security, not growth. It teaches you to play not to lose instead of playing to win. People operating in this mindset often avoid risk entirely, not realizing that avoiding risk is the biggest risk of all. They hold tightly to what little they have because they don't believe more can come. They undercharge, overthink, and procrastinate. They reject abundance before it even has a chance to show up. This mind also shows up in how people handle resources. A poverty-minded individual might receive a financial breakthrough, but immediately spend it on temporary relief instead of investing in long-term transformation. Why? Because they're mentally living paycheck to paycheck. Even if the numbers tell a different story, they don't trust themselves with money and they don't believe they can create more. So every dollar becomes a source of anxiety instead of empowerment. Scarcity thinking affects relationships too. People with a poverty mindset often view the success of others as a threat instead of proof of what's possible. They get jealous instead of inspired. They shrink around successful people instead of learning from them. They focus more on what they lack than they have, which creates a mental loop of dissatisfaction and comparison. That loop drains energy, creativity, and motivation. On the other hand, those who reject the poverty mindset begin to see lack as temporary and solvable. They shift from a focus on limitations to a focus on resourcefulness. Instead of asking, what can I afford? They ask, what can I create? Instead of saying, that's too expensive. They ask, how do I increase my value so I can afford that? Questions change, the perspective shifts, and slowly new habits are formed. Escaping the poverty mindset doesn't require winning the lottery. It requires changing what you believe about yourself, about money, and about your ability to create value. It starts with gratitude, because gratitude turns what you have into enough. It grows with vision, because vision gives you something to move toward. And it's sustained by responsibility, taking ownership over your future, even if your past wasn't your fault. You can't break out of poverty with the same thinking that created it. You have to challenge what you've been taught. You have to reject the idea that struggle is noble, that money is evil, or that your background limits your future. The poverty is a mental prison, and freedom comes when you decide to rewrite the narrative. The most important change is not what's in your wallet. It's what's in your mind. Money follows value, value follows belief. This simple principle is at the core of all sustainable wealth. People don't get paid based on time, effort, or even need. They get paid based on the value they provide. And that value is determined by how much of a problem you can solve and how deeply you believe in your ability to solve it. When belief increases, value increases. When value increases, income follows. The marketplace is not emotional. It doesn't reward effort for the sake of effort. It rewards solutions. If you bring more solutions, more money will come your way. But the size and quality of those solutions are directly related to the level of belief you have in yourself. People who doubt their worth don't show up powerfully. They second guess themselves, stay silent, undercharge, and play small. Their value may exist, but it's hidden beneath layers of fear and insecurity. Belief is what gives birth to ideas, products, services, and creativity. It's what fuels innovation and bold action. When someone believes they have something to offer, they act with confidence. They test ideas, take risks, and make offers. That's when value begins to grow, because belief gives permission to bring something to the world. Instead of keeping it buried inside, the more you believe in your potential, the more you're willing to do the uncomfortable things that real value creation. This is why some people with fewer resources or less experience still earn people who are more talented on paper. It's not just about skills. It's about the belief behind the skills. Someone who believes deeply in their ability to make a difference will find ways to learn faster, connect more deeply, and deliver more consistently. Belief is the engine, value is the vehicle, money is the destination. When you internalize the idea that money follows value, you stop chasing money and start creating value. Stop asking, how do I make more money? And start asking, how do I serve at a higher level? That shift changes everything. It makes you customer focused instead of income focused. It moves your attention from self-preservation to contribution. And in that shift, you unlock creativity, resourcefulness, and momentum. Value doesn't have to be loud or flashy. It just has to solve real problems. And when you truly believe in the impact you can make, you don't wait for validation. You don't need someone to tell you it's okay. You create, you serve, you deliver, and you improve. That consistent action compounds into results over time. The belief you have in your value becomes contagious. People feel it, respond to it, and pay for it. On the flip side, if you don't believe in your value, you will unconsciously repel money. You'll discount your services, shy away from opportunity, avoid sales conversations, they strengthen them, and settle for less than your worth. That's not humility. That's self-sabotage. People often say they have a money problem, but what they really have is a belief problem that's limiting their ability to create and deliver value. It's also important to recognize that value is dynamic. It can grow as your belief grows. You don't need to be the best in the world. You just need to be committed to increasing your belief and building your value consistently. Read more, practice more, learn from mentors, and challenge limiting thoughts. As you elevate your mindset, your capacity to provide solutions increases. That's when opportunities multiply, clients say yes, and income rises without forcing it. Money doesn't come from luck. It comes from alignment. When your belief, your value, and your actions are in alignment, money becomes a natural byproduct. Opportunities appear when your mind is ready. The ability to recognize an opportunity is not based on luck or timing. It's based on awareness. Two people can be standing in front of the same door. One sees it as an obstacle. The other sees it as an open path. The difference is mental readiness. A prepared mind has vision, clarity, and the confidence to act. An unprepared mind misses the signs, doubts the possibilities, and hesitates when it matters most. Opportunities are rarely announced with flashing lights or fanfare. They often disguise themselves as challenges, extra work, or uncertainty. They don't always come in the form you expect. That's why mental preparation is essential. If your mind is tuned to fear, distraction, or doubt, you'll mislabel the opportunity as a risk. But if your mind is trained to see potential and take action, you'll recognize the chance to grow, build, and move forward. Even when it's uncomfortable, mental readiness begins with belief. When you believe in your ability to solve problems, you naturally look for chances to apply your skills. You're more likely to notice where your talents fit, where your ideas have room to breathe, and where your solutions can make an impact. Belief creates curiosity, and curiosity leads to insight. It opens your eyes to gaps in the market. They see the strength, the unmet needs, and people who are looking for exactly what you can offer. Your thoughts create your filters. If you believe the world is full of scarcity, you'll filter out abundance. If you believe that people are selfish, you'll miss acts of generosity. If you believe that success is only for others, you won't see the ways it's available to you. But if you believe that life is full of potential, your brain will work constantly to match that belief, visible evidence. It will start pulling patterns out of chaos, connecting dots others overlook, and giving you the clarity to move when others freeze. Readiness also requires perspective. Sometimes what looks like a closed door is actually a redirection. A lost job could be an invitation to start a business. A rejected proposal could be pushing you a better client or a more aligned partnership. When your mind is ready, setbacks feel like the end. They feel like clues, pointers to something new, something better, something worth discovering. A ready mind also responds with speed. Hesitation is the enemy of opportunity. Most opportunities are time sensitive. They reward the decisive, not the hesitant. That doesn't mean you act recklessly, but it does mean you've developed the inner core to recognize alignment when you see it. Prepper makes decisions easier. It sharpens your intuition and gives you the confidence to move even when the path isn't fully visible. Mental readiness doesn't happen by accident. It's built through habits, reading, reflecting, setting goals, staying focused, and surrounding yourself with people who think at a higher level. It's reinforced every time you push through fear, take a calculated risk, and act in spite of uncertainty. Every time you prepare yourself mentally, you're expanding your capacity to handle success when it shows up. Some people are always waiting for the right time, not realizing that the right time shows up when you're ready to see it. Opportunity rarely waits. It often passes by those who are stuck in self-doubt or indecision. But when your mind is ready, you won't need perfect conditions. You won't need someone else to give you permission. You'll be alert, aware, and confident enough to say yes, even when the door is only slightly open. A prepared mind doesn't just find opportunities, it creates them. It sees potential where others see problems. It moves forward when others retreat. It's not dependent on the economy, the news cycle, or external permission. It's anchored in possibility, and that anchoring turns everyday moments into breakthrough chances. They change yourself before expecting change around you. This principle cuts through excuses and brings all the power back to where it belongs within you. Most people want better circumstances, more income, more opportunities, and better relationships, but they often overlook the most important shift of all, the internal one. The world responds to who you are, not just what you want. When you grow, everything around you starts to shift because your decisions, your energy, and your behavior come from a new place. Many wait for conditions to improve before they act. They say things like, once I get more money, I'll invest in myself, or once someone gives me a chance, I'll prove myself. That's backwards. Life doesn't change in your favor just because you want it to. It changes when you grow into the person who can handle and attract the level of success you desire. Growth always comes before gain. If you want more, you must become more. That requires ownership. Ownership means accepting full responsibility for your progress, regardless of what's happening externally. It means you stop blaming your past, your boss. They see the strength of your industry or your family. Those things might have influenced your story, but they don't have to. Ownership empowers you to ask a different set of questions. So, what do I need to learn? Who do I need to become? What habits are holding me back? What beliefs need to shift? When you take that responsibility, stop waiting for change and start initiating it, you stop being a passive observer of your life and become the architect of it. The most successful people wait for perfect timing. They became the right person, which brought the right timing into alignment. They developed the skills, the mindset, the discipline, and the emotional strength required to step into the next level. Change doesn't come from wishful thinking. It comes from intentional action. If you want more peace, become a more peaceful person. If you want more opportunity, become more valuable. If you want more wealth, become someone who thinks, acts, and decides like a steward of wealth. Every change you want in your life starts with an internal shift. Your habits, your thoughts, your words, and your decisions. It's easy to want external breakthroughs without internal transformation. People often look for shortcuts, but true change doesn't work that way. You might get temporary wins, but they won't last if you haven't developed the character and capacity to sustain them. That's why people win the lottery and go broke. That's why someone can get promoted and then get fired. The outside changed, but the inside stayed the same. Sustained success demands internal alignment. One of the most powerful decisions you can make is to stop waiting for someone else to fix things. Don't wait for the economy, the system, or your circumstances to become more favorable. Work on becoming the kind of person who thrives no matter what. That mindset shift puts you in a position of power. You begin to realize that your future is not determined by external permission, but by internal transformation. The moment you change how you see yourself, you change how others see you. The moment you take yourself seriously, others will too. The energy you carry, the boundaries you set, the standards uphold, they all come from your internal sense of identity. As you elevate that identity, you elevate your environment. The people, opportunities, and resources you attract will begin to reflect your new mindset. When you rise, everything around you must either rise with you or fall away. Some relationships will shift. Some habits will no longer serve you. Some spaces will feel too small. That's part of the process. You're not just changing what you do, you're changing who you are. And the external will always catch up to the internal.